Hey, we made it, Jessica. Um,
Yay.
hey, my name is Carla Johnston Crace, and this is Jessica Michael. And some of you know us, some of you don't, but we are really excited to collaborate on an event coming up in October. And so we wanted to share a little bit about that event, but also some of the things that have prompted it and some topics we're exploring this fall. One of those is the question about what are you hungry for? That's a fun one. We've had a lot of conversations.
What do you desire this next season or this season currently?
Yeah.
What little whispers have been showing up for you? What maybe little tweaks and changes would you like to do in your life or add or take away or, yeah, being curious and noticing, tuning in? So, what are
Yeah.
you for, Carla?
What am I hungry for? Um, it's been interesting. Like this week, I found I'm very hungry for more nature, and
Mm.
we've been doing a lot of fires in the backyard, and I am hungry. Like there's physical things that I can feel in my body, and these elements that I'm really craving. And it was interesting. Like I found myself, which is not uncommon when the seasons shift, that it's just like my palate. Like I'm like I don't even know what I want to eat, and so tuning into that hunger. But what I've learned over the years of cleansing is that, and taking time in the seasonal change to really listen to that, is to notice it's always more than the food. It's like my
Yes.
body and my digestion is changing, and it's feeling very different, and I can feel that piece. But really stepping into, like, between now and solstice, or now until next equinox, like what am I hungry for? What do I want to create? And there's so much going on in our world right now. I mean, there's ease, there's simplicity. I desire there's justice and equity, and I mean, there's bigger things. We have an election coming up, and I'm getting ready to go visit my mom for the first time in the pandemic, who is living with Alzheimer's and navigating life in that way. And so when I arrive, I know that things are different, and I know that when we're together, it really is about living in the moment.
Mm.
So I'm, like, when I, on the surface, I can feel the anxiety of that, or the worry of that. But when I drop in deeper, like the hunger is like presence. Like I want to be present in that. I want to be physically present with her, and I want to be present in that, which is sort of the same that I guess that I'm desiring, and I'm hungry for that through all of the uncertainty ahead in the next few months.
Mm.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. What about, well, and so that, I mean, that's why, like, the season has this element of movement, right? Like, and so I always feel when it comes, it just kicks up things in me, and it kicks up those questions about like, what do I want to eat, and what do I want to do, and how do I want my day, and where do I want to be in a few months. It can feel like an anxious energy, but when I take some time to listen deeper, then I can tap into the underlying hunger.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
curious about you. Like we've been talking about this too. You've had a lot, you've had a lot of change. I mean, we all have this external change happening, and then we all have stuff going on in our lives too. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's neat because you and I have been friends for a long time and we've done our first cleanse together like a decade ago, maybe or so.
yeah.
And how different that may have been, than what we're planning. And every season, maybe, we've cleansed in our own separate states that we live in now. And, um, having very different constitutions, you and I, just being, in different life situations. We've watched each other over the years, and here we are collaborating now. And yeah, for me, I've moved recently, and I'm settling in still. And so every time of year, every time this sort of season hits for me, I I feel the wind, I feel that movement, and sometimes I even like cringe a little because I'm like, uh-oh, you know, and then I'm just like, okay, no, like there's actually opportunity in this. And so now I'm settling into, as we speak, kind of settling into, okay, yes, there's an opportunity here. And what do I want to do this year? What am I hungry for? What do I feel the most desire pulling towards. And for me, that is more quiet time, a little more organization, um, and, just more stillness, I think, with get clarity. I've already had that sort of taste on my palate arrive, like, okay, I just want to eat roasted veggies, today. And then I just chop up a bunch of things, throw them in the oven. And it was just so satisfying to like have that earthiness, that groundedness. Um, and then, yeah, for me, it's just like actually kind of quieting the senses a lot. In my work, I am around a lot of stimulus. And so for me, it's just this feeling of like, okay, definitely time in nature, and just reducing some of the external noise and not taking in too much media, things like that are what's kind of pulling for me. And then other creative things are starting to like pop up for the future that I want to plan. But I feel first things first is just kind of, finish reorganizing my space, still kind of getting rid of some stuff. Cause you know how when you move, you're like, I thought I got rid of a lot, but there still seems to be these things. So I'm still kind of pulling out and clearing some space, for myself and the rest of my family. So yeah.
Yeah, clearing space. That's a big one.
Yes.
Yeah, so well, and that I just want to mention that is one thing that Jessica and I are doing is we're going to clear a little space, intentional space to do something we're calling Rejuve and Reset. It's a nourish and cleanse. And we'd love to have you in that. And you can find all the details at discoveryourcenter.com. But also, I think today we talked about just really offering some tips that you can start doing now if you're feeling anything in the seasonal change. Change brings stuff up, right? And we've been having stuff come up since March, and some of us long before that. We're moving through different transitions as we do. So I'm curious, Jess, like when, there are a number of things that you do, but say this isn't a practice, like what would be like your top 3 things that you would invite someone to do during seasonal change?
Top 3, I think for me would be bedtime being regulated, like before 10 p.m. if possible, or 10 p.m., 10:30, trying to just keep that sleep in check, which actually I didn't get so much last night. So, things happen, but number 1, sleep. Number 2 for me is self-massage. It really helps me just ground myself and get ready for bed. And 3, I think nature time and movement, like a movement practice, especially when I get emotional, over emotional, or stuck and angry, kind of sharp and kind of cranky, or even depressed, because I have both. So for me, a movement practice. And yesterday it was just my daughter and I woke up. It was like, okay, Sunday we're going to do a little, we haven't really run much, but both of us were like, let's go for a little like 20-30 minute burst. And we just did that. And we both just were like, oh, that was so good. So yeah, movement, whether it's gentle walking out in nature, noticing, sometimes it might be a little bit more active depending on the weather and your energy level and all that. But those 3 things, movement, sleep, and self-massage with oil, those are my top 3. What about you? I'm so curious.
Yeah, self-massage, you and I both, we have such a love and passion for that. And if you know me, or if you've ever been in one of my classes, it's like I mention it all the time. And I love hearing back from clients and students what a gift that is. So if you don't know what that is, we can put a link. I do have a short video, but it's simply taking oil and putting it on your body. And it's a beautiful check-in. I actually do it year-round, pretty much daily, but seasonal change, for me, I tend to really experience the elements of dry and mobility in the fall season. Like when you look outside and the leaves are drying and the wind is kicking up and the temperatures are getting cooler, I really feel that in me so much. And it used to contribute to a lot of imbalances. My skin would just be so dry, and I would really be very scattered and anxious in the fall, and struggle with sleep and insomnia and allergies and all sorts of things. And so the self-massage with oil is really, really balancing for me because it's warm and it feels like a little blanket that I'm putting over me. I like to put the oil in my nostrils too, because
I did last night for the first time. I said, "Oh, we're back to this season when I oil my nostrils." Yeah, for
yeah,
a while.
yeah. So that, I mean, that's probably number one for me.
Mhm.
Um, I usually find that I can start complicating things as the season changes. And so I just dial back to simplicity. And one way to do that is, for me, is to look at keeping the things that I eat simple. So again, like I'll start to notice that maybe what I was eating during summer or things that are dry tend to aggravate that anxiety in me. So I'm usually adding more oil to what I'm eating. I love ghee. Um, so I'm adding more ghee. I love to have it in, I'm looking at teas and warm beverages and things that will warm me from the inside out. And the third thing, sleep is definitely key, but I would say breath for me. Like I'm usually including breathing practices that are more warming and stimulating for digestion. Um, and one of the things a lot of my clients talk about is how digestion shifts in the seasonal changes, and in the fall, constipation can be an issue. Constipation, bloating. There's all different digestive issues that could show up. But for me personally, I think that was probably something that was an issue most of my life since childhood and I never knew about. So now it's just simply tuning into the elements and then tuning into how do I keep my whole internal systems warm and moving, like the fire in the belly and the digestive fire moving. And so more vigorous breathing practices will help that. And then tuning in, does that like make me feel more anxious?
Mhm.
Usually, and it's sort of followed by a few slow, deep belly breaths, that are, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's funny, like there's no one thing, but I think that, um, so often we can find it. If you've ever cleansed before, or you've thought about it, you might see a list of all the things you could do or should do. And I don't like the should, because I think that it's really up to the individual. It is really seasonal, and even if you choose one thing to tune into how you're feeling, how's your body, how's your digestion. You and I have talked a lot about emotions in the seasonal change, like
Yeah.
where are the emotions at, um, and then tuning into what's happening outside too, and making that intentional time and space. So I'm really excited to do this with you. It's been a long time since we've created something like this together. I would love to also just ask, like, the emotional piece, if you have noticed. Did you do a spring cleanse too, Jess?
A small one, a very simplified. I really didn't focus on food. That was early in the pandemic, and I was just actually eating a lot of bakery and really like. I think I was probably emotional eating at that time. I was cleansing some other substances out of my life at that time, actually. And I was living in the city, so it was really hard to connect with nature. And there was just a lot. So actually, I did not really, not in the way that I'm ready for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to just maybe invite you to say a little bit more about that, or maybe we could chat about that, the emotional piece, because I think in most people, when you start talking about a seasonal detox or cleanse, and I prefer the word cleanse and think of the one that you and I are designing is definitely rejuvenative. Is that a word?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rejuvenating.
We made it.
Um, and it's designed to really nourish deep. So it's not about depriving oneself of anything. It's about really tapping into that deep hunger, like what will nourish you, what will help you thrive. And I'm curious that, because we've talked about this, but I'd love for you to share more about the emotional aspect of that. Like, what are some of the benefits of taking time in the seasonal transition to nourish with replenishing foods and with self-care practices, whether it's one day or 3 days or 7 or more, to
Yeah.
just set that time, like the emotional aspect of that.
Yeah. I love that question because that's for me. I could go on a long time about that, but for now, I'll just keep it simple. But definitely, so the elements, they're outside and they're inside. And I kind of tend to overcomplicate things sometimes in my mind. So uh, just keeping it simple and remembering at that level, it's true. So at the end of summer, for example, with me, there's a lot of heat build up in my system. And during the summer, I try to be careful to not aggravate that by eating a lot of spicy foods or things like that. But fall comes for me, and there is sometimes still this sort of excess heat that might need to leave my body. How does that show up? Anger, frustration, like a sharpness, maybe like a meanness, like I can just like snap and at my family when I didn't even realize I was that annoyed. So that's the kind of, you know, emotions that for me, I always need to kind of notice and temper. So now we're going into a more cool season. So for me, that's kind of like exciting because I'll eat the more grounding foods, you know, all the yummy root veggies and things like that. And I need protein. I need a lot of protein. So I love that. But I get an opportunity to add a little bit more of the warming spices back in. So for me, that's kind of exciting. And I don't have to necessarily worry like, oh no, it's going to imbalance me now. I can have a little, you know, warming spices. But for me, that's sort of my like shadowy edge, is like to stay not impatient, to not get so angsty. And the things like taking meditation time, like just sitting in stillness and quiet, or walking alone in nature, or a bike ride alone, or going to the lakefront, or any sort of water element for me will help balance the fieriness, which is kind of in my nature. So that's that's like really just, you know, an ongoing thing. But at the end of summer, you know, for someone like me that's a little bit spicy already, it's kind of noticeable. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and I just want to mention in our nourishing cleanse, which is really like an at-home retreat, Jessica has an amazing talent in the kitchen and creating foods that are balancing. So there'll be a lot of support with that, and we really want it to be. We'll talk about a lot of the self-care practices that in general support fall, both the digestive process, the nervous system, the emotional detox, all of it, and tapping into like really what is the greater desire here? Like, what are you really hungry for? Like that you want to create in your life, the experience you want to have in the next like now through the holidays, for example, like what are holidays going to be like in a pandemic? You know, what's it going to be like after the election? What's it going to be like moving into the next year? For me, you know, where will kids be, you know, in January? We'll probably still be online. But all these questions, and but that the individual piece is going to be really key. We want to support you all in sort of exploring your own constitution. Like Jessica's talking about the fiery elements in her personality and how they might go out of balance, or you know, what happens. And for me, it's more of the air and ether. And so we want to explore that, because that's a really fun way to not just do a cleanse to do a cleanse. Like the whole purpose of it is to get in tune with you and find out what helps you thrive. And for me personally, the emotional aspect is big. Like when, you know, pandemic hit in the spring, about, you know, early March, by April, I dove into a bigger cleanse than what I've done in many, many years. Usually they've become pretty simple and shorter for me over the years than when I was first learning and doing this. And what I found was, wow, there was just a lot to unravel in the tissues of the body, like the way I was physically holding things, but it was more of emotion. And it wasn't this all out, you know, cry release. There's so many different ways. It's just when we give time and space for things to move, and that attention is to, you know, how food wants to come in and move, how we can use the beautiful spices. Jessica's just a whiz at that to help balance and nourish that, and in our unique personality and the self-care practices. It's really amazing. Like the clarity, I don't know, I guess that's like what would be, if I were to describe the qualities after a cleanse, like for me, it's always clarity, feeling grounded, centered, oh my gosh, far less reactive. So like any fire in me, or it can even be the airy anxiousness, like just feels more like I'm able to respond rather than react. And I always feel deeply nourished, like, okay, I got this. Like what's coming ahead? I'm curious if, like, for you, what would you say?
Centered, present, and more joyful. So because I tend towards like anger and irritability and those kind of emotions, it brings me like a little bit back to center where I'm like content. You know, I'm a little more like at the center and just sort of like, oh, okay, yeah, less reactive. Yeah, less
Cool.
irritable, which is,
Less irritable.
yeah.
I know, no, I get it.
Just
Yeah, so, you know, cleansing, like your own personal cleanse can be such a gift to the people in your home, because you will be nicer, more patient.
I'm also
Not,
like
not nicer in the way of trying to please, but really
no,
like
yeah,
clear on what I need and
right.
not afraid to ask for it, and not asking for that in a real pushy way, but in a loving way where we get to kind of help each other. And
Yeah,
in the cleanse, we can talk. Jess and I've cleansed with our families for years, so I let them know what's happening. It's optional for them, but we'll have some tools too if you are the one who cooks the meals, like how to do this for yourself and your family.
yeah. Is one more point on that. It's just like I feel like there's better communication in general because like channels are clearer. So instead of being like like just it's just easy. It's easier communication kind of, and everybody's like, oh, like smoother running household, hopefully.
Yeah, channels are clear. I like that. They are definitely.
Yeah. So
All right.
excited.
It's exciting. And we're excited to offer this. So do you have the details?
So the details, it starts on October 17th, which is a Saturday, and runs through the whole week. So it's an 8-day cleanse, actually runs through the 24th. And if you register before the 12th of October, it is $149. If you bring a friend, I believe there's even another 10 or 20 off of that price. All the info is on Carla's website, also on mine, but I think it's more cohesively on Carla's discoveryourcenter.com/rejuve. It's under,
And where's your website? Just Jessica Michael?
yes, Jessica Michael. That's Jessica with a K, Michael, MIKOL.com. It's also there. But for signing up and registering, just go to discoveryourcenter.com.
Great.
And
You'll find out all the details that we've been having fun pulling together some of the resources we already have, but also creating some new ones just to really support. We'd like it to be simple, but there will be a lot of resources that you get to have as you evolve in the future. And we get that people might be coming into this experience. Some will have cleansed before, some never before. So we'll try and meet you with a variety of resources and support. And if you have any questions, just reach out to one of us, and we can put a link below.
And you know, the thing is, you can really be creative and have fun with it and individualize this. And so I think we're going to talk in another video, perhaps more specifically about ideas, you know, all kinds of ideas, or you'll see more about that. But just keep in mind that you can really make this your own. And we will be creating like audio guides and videos for you. And we'll have 4 live calls where we can all jump on together. So there's a lot of options to kind of feel connected and be a part of this community where we're all kind of doing it on our own little way in our own homes. And yet we have that support, which is really so key and so nice. Because if you have moments where you're just like, I'm feeling alone, you know, there's, you know, ways to reach out and have support. And then, you know, there's a live call. And so we'll have lots of options for that.
Yeah. Community is key. And that's part of why we're offering the community experience. And it's interesting, like Jessica and I, it's great to have a buddy too. That's why we have to bring a friend, because we brought each other to many things over the last 10 years, because it's really nice to be in it with someone. So thanks for showing up. If you have questions, just reach out to one of us, post this wherever you see this. I guess it'll probably be on YouTube and our Facebook pages. And you can comment. And if you have more questions, because we will come back on and answer them as we can, individually or in video. Cool.
Yeah, just reach out. If you feel any little whisper towards this, then I hope you'll listen and join us.
follow it, follow that deep hunger.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah. See you soon.